Chatbot Crash Course with Sebastian Witalec.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I will share my screen just to show that I can do it too. And the way we're gonna do it, like I will start with a quick presentation first to give you a bit of an idea of what is it that we're looking at and what sort of challenges we're gonna face. And then later on, I'm gonna do a quick demo. So yeah, I mean, just like Brian said, we work together. So I'm a senior developer advocate for Progress. So if you're on Twitter, you can follow me. I'm Seba Wita, which is basically the first 4 letters of my first name and last name. So it's quite easy. So just to go quickly over the agenda, we're going to cover serious things like what do the chatbot eat? Do chatbots have dreams? We are going to look at some chatbot challenges, and we're going to build a chatbot. And there's a small warning: you should go and try it at home because there's literally no danger whatsoever. In the worst case, you're going to succeed, which is pretty cool. Okay, so let's start with the first serious question from every 6-year-old. What do chatbots eat? Well, since the chatbots are built by developers, what's better than pizza, right? So I believe that all chatbots can eat pizza, and I think this is the only possible answer. Another thing is slightly more serious is actually, do the chatbots have dreams? And if any of you watched Blade Runner, you should know that yes, they do. They dream of electric sheep. So this is, I'm pretty sure that some of you didn't know it, but if you are a sci-fi fan, you probably could have guessed. Okay, so then we can go into actually more meaty stuff around some of the chatbot challenges of engines that you can see out there, or the chatbot that some of the people build. And I'm pretty sure that at least half of you interacted with chatbots, be it inside a banking app or some store that you were using in the past. But here's some of the observations and challenges that I noticed. So one of the challenges is actually a lot of those chatbots will have fixed decision trees. So basically, they force the users to kind of go via step A, step B, step C kind of thing, where users can't provide the information at their own pace. So we can look at the conversation like somebody coming in and saying, "Hey, I want to book a flight to London for Wednesday," and the chatbot goes "Sure, where do you want to go?" And then somebody goes "London, when?" On Wednesday. And then but the chatbot can also get sometimes confused with that. But the whole idea is that the user actually starts with providing the right information, while in this case, the chatbot only expects as a first step is I want to recognize what sort of conversation we'll have, and then I will start asking for the input, as opposed to actually letting the user provide that input upfront or whenever he feels like. So obviously, that's not always the best flow. So another one is around lack of understanding of business entities. So the whole idea is that if you're building a chatbot for a hospital, then the chatbot should be aware of the data types and the individual entities like doctors or treatment rooms, or if you're building a shop or a car rental shop, right? This chatbot should be aware of all offices, car types, or maybe insurance types that you are providing, so that it could actually, when you type any information, it should be able to catch these individual phrases. So I've got a small example when somebody can go start with something like, "Hey, I want to meet with Dr. Burke on Tuesday," and if the chatbot doesn't actually understand the list of doctors that you have in your hospital, then automatically he will get confused and go "Sorry, I don't understand it." So obviously the solution to that would be to train the chatbot with some data. So if we provide it with entities around doctors, then saying something like "I want to meet with Dr. Burke," should automatically give you access to the backend, and then the chatbot should be able to recognize that Dr. Burke actually fits this whole record that has like all the additional data, which then allows you to carry on with the conversation, because then you straight away know that not only does the person wants to have an appointment, but also knows that it's this specific doctor, and then you can make sure that for example, the kind of treatment that this patient needs is appropriate as well. So yeah, that's definitely helpful. So another one is around lack of proper acknowledgements. So very often, like, the users will make a longer statement that provides multiple pieces of information, like this conversation when somebody says like, hey, I would like to sign up for health insurance for a skiing trip to Italy from March 8th to March 9th. And if the chatbot kind of like follows on with something like, what is your age? Like at this point, you might not be exactly sure. It's like, did the chatbot really understand that not only I want insurance, but also it is for skiing trip that is for this specific dates? And then very often they could just ask like, hey, are you sure you got my info? But if we don't have proper acknowledgements, then the users never have the confidence in the whole conversation. So obviously, a lot better solution could be like that we can ensure that the chatbot acknowledges whenever we provide additional information, even if the chatbot didn't ask for it directly. So for example, to the statement like this, the chatbot should respond with, a trip to Italy is always a good idea, and then let's find you an insurance from this date to this date. And at this moment, when the chatbot asks, what is your age? The user really trusts the processor. You know, it's like, okay, the machine really knows what I'm talking about. It's asking me for the age now. Let me provide that, and we're good to go. One other thing is around dealing with ambiguities. So that's also actually quite a common challenge. So obviously, when you use a chatbot, you use a daily language. And I actually found that English is a very ambiguous language, that it's very easy to make a statement that means three different things. So if people sometimes can get confused over simple sentences, like, what about machines? Like they're not as good as dealing with languages as we are. And so there will be cases where chatbots can get confused. So for example, sometimes like even a simple sentence like that could throw off the chatbot of the track. Because if you say, I talked to Dr. Burke and he told me to book an appointment with Dr. Alcott. And at this point, actually, the chatbot could think that it is Dr. Burke that you want to really meet. So you could respond with like, hey, sure. Would you like to see Dr. John Burke? No, I want to see Dr. Alcott. And this is already like a frustrated user because he says like, clearly from my sentence should be understood, but there was no way for me to kind of correct it up front. So obviously, if we deal with ambiguities up front, this kind of conversation could be a lot better when when the chatbot responds to this sentence with saying, hey, can you please clarify which doctor do you want to see? And then if the user chooses, Dr. Alcott, then that will give him more confidence with the whole process. And also, it could go like, hey, I thought that was pretty clear, but at least it's a very easy way to clarify what we want to do and kind of keep going. Another example is around using long-term memory. So like chatbots, like pretty much like any machines, are really good at dealing with operations that you repeat over and over again. But also like chatbots should have like pretty much perfect memory. So if let's say you use the same chatbot to book an appointment with your doctor, the chatbot should be able to remember some of the details. Shouldn't need to always ask, for example, your phone number, etc. So you could have a conversation like, "Hey, it's me again. Can you book me an appointment with Dr. Burke on Tuesday at 11?" And the chatbot goes like, "Yeah, sure. Let's book you an appointment with Dr. Burke at this date at 11 a.m. What is your phone number?" And then at this point, if this is something you do every week, you could get a bit frustrated and you could say like, well, don't you have it already? So obviously a lot better thing to do in this case could be find a way that if, let's say, somebody provided you the same phone number, let's say in the last two conversations, then perhaps you could just ask for verification. So the very same conversation would go a lot better if we start with the same sentence, the same first reaction, and then instead of asking for us to provide the phone number, you should do something like, sure, is your phone number still so and so? And in this case, we actually give the user a chance to do two things. They can either confirm, say yes, and then they save a lot of keystrokes, and also there is no way for them to make a typo and provide a wrong number. Or they can say no and provide us with a new phone number. So what if they can't use this landline number, but they want to use a mobile phone this time? So I think this is really, really important that we try to streamline the whole conversation as much as possible, because the faster we can go through this whole process, then the bigger chance there is that the user will go all the way trying to complete that booking. Another thing is, so since we're dealing with screens, it's important to think like, yes, we should be able to type everything, but maybe we shouldn't necessarily just do it as a chat, kind of like a typing chat only, like because we have a screen here and we have some UI, so why not actually go and provide with some UI components that allow, for example, make the user specific choices, or just make the whole thing like look a lot nicer and make it look prettier. But here's a very practical example. So let's say we're coming in and we want to book an appointment with Dr. Burke again on Tuesday. The chatbot's like, sure, I understand you want to meet with Dr. Burke. What time? And then at this point, like, you would think that there is nothing wrong going on, but look at what is happening after. So we can respond, say, well, we want to meet him at 12. And the chatbot goes like, sorry, Dr. John Burke is busy at 12. What time? And then pretty much what you're going to think is like, wow, this is going to take a while. And if you say that, the chatbot will go like, sorry, didn't get that. So obviously a lot better way of dealing with this scenario would be to actually provide the user with a list of options and use conversational UI to let them choose the best option. So if they come and say, I want to book an appointment with Dr. Burke on Tuesday, we should say, yeah, we get it. You want to see this doctor. Here are the available times for this date. And then at this case, even if we want to book an appointment at 12, we could say like, actually, 11 is not too far away. I can still make that appointment. Or if none of these slots work, then you could maybe go back and say, how about Wednesday? But the idea is that we make it pretty much obvious of what are the options that are available and allow the user to very quickly just click what options he wants to use. So all of that is pretty easy, right? It's like, okay, so we know what sort of challenges we should be dealing with, and pretty much implementing a chatbot should be a straightforward thing. And kind of like this is something that inspired us on our side. At Progress, we wanted to build this virtual assistant, which basically was supposed to be a small chatbot-like application that would allow you to find a meeting room and book it. And the whole idea would be that you could come over and say, okay, I need to make a meeting in, let's say, London, and there will be 8 of us, and we need something at this and this time. And you would think that such an application should be fairly straightforward, but this is the diagram that we came up with of all the possible scenarios and solutions and what happens when you choose this or that or that. And then if you were to implement this by by writing like a long JavaScript application with a lot of if statements and switches and some sort of loops, you could spend a year, and I think you would still probably find some cases where you are not covering this scenario. And maybe if you manage to do it, what if then the requirements change slightly, where all of a sudden we need to add another option where you could say like, well, we also want to make sure that there is a projector with HDMI available. And basically, you just tear all your hair out because you just have to start again. So obviously, writing a lot, like, the conventional code for this kind of solution wouldn't be the best option. And this comes as well, like, to some of the chatbot engines that I looked around, that they're basically kind of forced into predefined paths that are set by developers. So if you build it by writing a lot of if statements or having like very rigid structure of like step A, B, C, that makes interacting with such chatbots a lot harder. So the previous scenario that I talked about is actually something that inspired us to build. Actually, the name is Progress Kinvey Chat. I should update this slide. But yeah, we built the engine called Progress Kinvey Chat, and it's basically an AI-powered platform for creating intelligent chatbots. So we use AI so that the chatbot can learn more about the entities that it's dealing with, but also it can deal better with the kind of language that you use in order so that it can provide you better answers. And also the really important thing is that the engine is based on declarative type of programming. So rather than building very, let's say, complicated if-else sort of intelligent statements, you just declare what sort of information you need in order to complete a specific type of conversation. And then the chatbot manages the flow of that conversation. And actually, one of our first users was Dr. Sterev Hospital in Sofia. So they were able to, and they are actually using it live for the past, I think, a year and a half. And they were able to change the way the people that come and try to book the appointments, like they were able to improve how the people were able to actually come, book an appointment for specific dates. And we talked to them, and there's even like a case study, and they said that it's basically around 49% of decrease in the amount of time their call center staff has to spend talking to people directly. And when people actually do have to call them directly or talk to them directly, it's mostly when there's conversation that require slightly more expertise, where maybe you need to find out like something that is not like a straightforward thing, could be very, edge cases. But in general, they also told us that 40% of their appointments that are booked throughout the whole year were all booked through the chatbot, while the remaining 60% were booked directly by talking to people. So I think that's actually a pretty cool case. So what's also important is like the chatbot didn't replace the people that work there, but it helped them take care of like the very simple cases so that they can focus on stuff that require a specialist knowledge, which is pretty cool. So let's have a look at some examples of and then some maybe features that we provide with Kinvey Chat with, let's say, this insurance agent type application. So one of the cool things is that we're actually using natural language processing. So the chatbot can actually deal with like 70 different languages and allow the users to actually use regular language to kind of communicate and provide the information and data that is required in order to complete such conversation. We also provide like the set of acknowledgements. So whenever somebody gives you information like where they want to go and what sort of dates, we can then respond with stuff like, yeah, a trip to Italy is always a good idea, based on that they said that they want to go to Italy. We also provide like slot algorithms. So basically that's part of the conversational UI where, for example, instead of somebody specifically having to type male or female, we can actually give them a list of options, or we can provide different list pickers so that they can choose from larger lists of options, which basically simplifies the whole scenarios. We can, and this is actually one of the things that I really like. It's very easy to also change your intent. So if throughout this whole conversation you realize that you're booking in insurance for specific dates, and then suddenly, like towards the end, when you're just about to confirm the booking, you realize that you picked the wrong dates. Very often, like a lot of other chatbot engines, they'll force you to restart the whole conversation. While in our case, we can actually just say, I want to travel on this and this date, and then the chatbot can update that piece of information. But also you can have some additional logic where if, let's say, you change the date, you might want to invalidate some of the other entities and ask the user to enter it again. Or if this doesn't affect any other information that they provided, you could just change it and then continue the conversation, which I think is pretty cool. And also you get like a bunch of options to automatically confirm what the user wants. So like you just saw a second ago, somebody says like you were towards the end of the conversation, you could say, hey, so far I gathered this and this and this pieces of information from you. So are you okay with that? Would you like to change any of them? If not, you can just confirm and we can carry on, which is quite handy. And then obviously using the conversational UI, again, like you can have some more fancy examples. So where you can display images and some additional information to allow the user to select specific options. And then the other interesting thing is around like asking questions that are not necessarily related to the current conversation that we have, but there might be still important. So maybe in order to book this specific insurance, we might not need to provide the information on like what sort of things this specific insurance covers. But if the user wants to know that, we can have like this just a list of questions and answers, so the user can ask at any point and we can provide him with the answer, and then promptly come back to the original conversation, so that we don't really have to disrupt the original process, which I think it's pretty handy. And obviously, this is the very important thing. The chatbots are always focused on a specific goal. So once you started the conversation to go ahead and book some insurance, even if you ask some question that requires like an answer from FAQ, the chatbot will restart, like go back to the last step, and then provide you some maybe information, and then say like, okay, this is what we're doing. Let's come back and carry on with the whole conversation, which basically ensures that the users continue and complete more conversations than they would otherwise. And yeah, this is also like value suggestions. So this is where you already provided information before. Like, for example, you said like, hey, this was my email address. Like you don't have to type it over and over again with every single conversation. And we have like all sort of validations. So you could even validate if, let's say, somebody provides an image of a receipt, then we can make sure that using some image recognition, what sort of things we see on the receipt, and if it's not like a text or something that looks like a document, then we could respond with a message like, well, this looks like an animal picture. It looks cute, but give me a receipt, please. Which I think is also really, really useful. So that's pretty much it when it comes to like, the challenges and the sort of things that we promise to do, like with cfe. So what I want to do now is do a quick demo and show you how that looks in action. So very often, so usually in order to get started, you'd have to go to bots.cfe.com, and then you can press like new bot, and let's say create, like, provide some name, and you can choose. So we have like a couple of sample applications, like a book a doctor and insurance agent. So if you want to see how they work, you could choose one of them, and then you can just create one. I already have one chatbot. It doesn't have anything inside. I just want to like save some time from actually waiting for creation of the instance. But basically, a chatbot would look, sorry, a little bit like that. I'm gonna make it a bit bigger so that you should be able to see better. But in a way, the chatbot is divided into two parts. So one is this JSON, where we declare what sort of conversations we want to have, and what sort of things we want to, and then like what sort of each steps for, sorry, we have like a bunch of different conversations, like conversation 1 and conversation 2. And then for each conversation, there could be a number of steps that we want to perform. So even with just a hello world that gets generated out of the box, I can press test, which will load the chatbot. And then this, after a moment when it loads, I should be able to start talking to it. There might be some delays. Sometimes when I'm streaming at the same time as using the chatbot, my Wi-Fi is fighting it. Let me see, let's try again. Here we go. That is not loading. Oh, there we go. So it kind of like, yeah, the chatbot starts like a welcome message. And then I can say, hi. And it should start with like welcome message. So if we look at this, so if I'm looking here, oh yeah, that's not. Unless my chatbot engine is down. All right, let me try a different chatbot. Maybe there's something wrong today with my instance. Just test it very quickly. There's always a risk when you're trying to do those demos live. Oh, yeah, that should be a bit better. Oh yeah. So yeah, we basically got the response, and then we can just say like, conversation 1, and then that response. Usually that's a lot faster. That's sometimes like when you're in development, it can be a bit slower. Okay, so let me go back to the original, and we'll try to build something, and the pace of it should pick up. Okay, so here's the idea. So in here we have things like there's different type of conversations. So we obviously have like the default ones, like welcome conversation. So this is where the chatbot can provide like a welcome message when you arrive, when you open the chat, and then maybe provide you a list of available conversations. There's like a help message. So in case somebody says like, I'm lost or I need help, we can print some additional messages. You could also type restart at any time. So you could also provide like what sort of message you want to do when the restart happens. And then obviously we have like a bunch of conversations. So usually this JSON is where you define the flow of the conversation. That's like the step number one. And what we can do is, for example, build a chatbot for ordering a pizza, right? So we have so we need to add a conversation that will have a goal, and the goal will be like order a pizza. So I'm gonna call it pizza order, and I will copy this name because we'll reuse it in a second. And then maybe the first step could be a message where we could just say something like, "Cool, let's find a pizza for you." And then I can save this. So this is basically where we define the cognitive flow of this conversation. And another part is the training. So the training is where we teach the chatbot about the type of entities that we have and what sort of triggers or keywords should be used in order to, for example, trigger specific conversation. So one of the first things, we have this built-in conversation. So this is basically where we can trigger pizza order. Actually, I already had it here. Let me delete it so I can actually show you how we do that. So the value is pizza order. So this is exactly the name of the conversation as we had in the conversation UI. And now we can add some expressions that should trigger this specific conversation. So you could say, I want a pizza, or I am hungry for, get me some, right? And if I save that, basically this is how we can train the chatbot now to kind of be able to recognize this type of conversation. So right now the engine is training with that new data, and I should be able to do something like, I am hungry for food. It doesn't even necessarily have to be the exact same expression, but you can see like the chatbot already recognizes like, yeah, he wants to order a pizza, not show the message from conversation one. So that's like one of the steps. Some other things, like obviously I talked about entities. So for example, we could have an entity type, sorry, not in new conversation. We could have, let's say, an entity type for the size of a pizza, okay? So let's add an entity called size. It's a keyword type, it's static. And in this case, we can add values like, okay, we'll have a small pizza. Save that. Actually, small could also be like 12-inch. So if somebody provides that, then that's a synonym. So you can either say small or 12-inch. Then we could, for example, have medium, and that will be 15-inch. And I'm going to add one more value. And that one more value. And that could be large, and that will be 18-inch. And maybe somebody could, or let's call it extra. No, just large is fine. But you can provide like more than one synonym if you want. So like we could call it really big, because why not? And basically that's how we add some additional entities. So if I come back to the cognitive flow now, we can add an additional step. So I can say, I want a step of type question, because in this case, we want to ask the user to provide some information. So I'm going to call it size, and the entity type is size with capital S, as we were provided in the training. And this is usually a kind of a question that you can ask the user. So it's like, what size do you want? And here's the cool thing, that if I, after comma, provide another string, that basically provides an alternative way of asking. So that the chatbot doesn't necessarily always have to ask the same question exactly, but you can ask it in many different ways. So maybe you can ask, how big should it be? So we can save that, and we can try to test it again. So I want a pizza. Make it large. And the chatbot should be able to recognize that. And you can even see, like on the right-hand side, we have this console that shows the understanding. And you can see that the chatbot understood that we wanted a large pizza from here. And then we could kind of like carry on. Obviously, when you're dealing with data, you don't always necessarily want to type every single item manually, because that could be very tedious and very slow. Like, what if you booking? What if the type of pizzas that you have change like on a weekly basis, right? Like you might have specials, etc. So what you can do, you could also have like a dynamic entity. So in this case, you can provide like a data source configuration to display what sort of pizzas you have. So I have in my cfe backend, I have like a list of pizzas. So if I go to the, let's say, API console, just to show you, I have my pizza. Making a request to this URL, it basically gives me a bunch of records where we have a name, I have an image, and even type of the pizza. And then there's like a bunch of records. So why not using that to ask the user for what pizza they want, okay? So setting it up is actually pretty straightforward. So we basically first need to get the URL. So I'm gonna just very quickly do it. So it's gonna be http bus.cfe.com. Then the rest of URL is this bit. So that. Then for the headers, we have to provide like the authentication key. So in my case, it's basically authorization equals, and this is my key. So I can do that. So this should already, and this will call get in order to get the record. And if I do something, I can use double handlebar to kind of say like which field I want to get, and I can press test. You can see that we are getting a list of records. So basically, this value template is how to get the value that should be then recognizable when somebody says, I want a pizza, make it pepperoni, right? So basically, this will be the values that will be accepted. But if there is another field, let's say, like if we had an alternative unique, let's say, value for, maybe they could be supreme, but maybe they would also have like a shorter version like SPR, and then pepperoni could have pep. Then you could also use like additional field if you really wanted. But basically, that should be enough. So let's give it a name. So this we're gonna call pizza. And if I save this, this should create a new instance that allows us to basically query. That will allow the users to provide this. So we have like veggie, pepperoni, etc. And even from the training, we can also type here like pepperoni, or make it like a sentence. I want a pizza pepperoni. And you could kind of see like what the chatbot understands. So he also like understands that we still want to call pizza order, and the item that we're looking for is pepperoni of type pizza. But we can still go and update our conversation. So we had the first step, like, provide some message. Then we have a question for the size, and then maybe we can ask for a pizza. Okay, so let's say step question. So we're asking for pizza. Type pizza. Which pizza would you like? And basically, this is all we need in order to get that to be able to ask for the size and for a pizza. But obviously, at this point, it's also good to give the user ability to choose from the available options, because sometimes, like, what if there is extra large, or maybe there is like some crazy name for different sizes? So we could use some additional help. So for example, there is this display option, which we can say type is quick reply, and that basically will give us like a bunch of buttons that allows the user to select which pizzas they want. Sorry, and display, I put it in the wrong place. So this is for choosing the sizes, and maybe for the type of pizzas, we can also use display, and the display will be not quick reply. What was single select? Okay, so single select can take a bunch of parameters. So we have like title. In here we have button text as well. What else we have? And we should have actually we shouldn't need a template. This should be enough. So the title is like find a pizza. So this is basically that we can have like a little button that opens up the menu, and then you can have a button say, I want this pizza. And that, I think, should be enough to get it tested. Okay, so I want a pizza. And you can see like we're now getting these options. So we can have, say, large, medium, small. We can select medium, find a pizza, and we can get like a list of available pizzas. And then you can choose like ultimate cheese and say like, I want this pizza. And then it kind of like carries on. Like you may have noticed that we also like display this message like, cool, let's find a pizza for you, because it's like how we work, and we can also make it conditional because basically we execute each step every time the user provides any input. The engine kind of goes through each step and kind of evaluates and executes it. So the kind of like the messages like can get always they always get called, but you could add a condition to only display this message when we don't have a size, etc. But that's like something that we can dive deeper in. It's not really a big deal. But what I want to show you next is once you went through kind of like, let me remove this message because sometimes it's annoying and I don't want to fix it right now. But what you can do is add a couple of other steps. So usually once you allow the user to select like, what sort of pizza they want and the size, then usually you would have like entity confirmation. Yeah, pizza type confirmed. And then we can list the entities that we want to allow the users to change. So we could say, okay, the user should be able to change the size if they want to, and they should be able to change the pizza if they want to. And you could provide like messages. Is this the pizza you want? Which basically yeah, this will be the message, and then based on that, we'll present the option that the user selected. But the really cool thing after that is that what we can do, we could also execute a webhook. So once the user confirmed what they wanted, we could very easily make a post request to send that data into the backend. Okay, so in my case, I also have a table for orders, which at the moment it's empty. Okay, but I could very easily make a post request to this URL. So let's send it to my orders table. Was it orders? Yeah, I missed an S. Okay, and the header is obviously authorization. The header value is my key over here. And knowing live, there will be some hacker that will be adding records to my database now, but that's okay. This is just for fun. And then basically payload is what usually goes into the body. So we could, for example, say size, and again, I'm gonna use the handlebar. So say size, and then let's call it food, because we can. And then in this case, this would be our pizza entity over here. And basically that's what will get sent. Obviously, like the whole process should be bigger. Like, you should ask somebody for their email address and for payment methods, or etc., etc. But like that's basically the whole idea of, let's say, sending a request to your backend, and probably at this point you could also send like a confirmation. Okay, your pizza should be on the way in the next 10 minutes. And the cool thing is that, like, usually once you execute this webhook, you would have something else happening on your backend. So obviously, the kitchen staff should be notified about the pizza, but you should also kind of like process the payments and an email, etc., etc., because that is not necessarily the responsibility of the chatbot itself. But if I now try to test this, I can say I am hungry for a pizza. Cool. We could say 15-inch. We could either say find a pizza or type it ourselves, but yeah, I like Hawaiian chicken. Why not? And then at this point, you see, like, this is the confirmation step. So in this case, if I say no, I want to change Hawaiian pizza, we get again asked to choose something else. So let's go with supreme, and we all and then we again gets asked, like, is this what you want? And if I confirm, this basically executes the webhook and then provides the information. So if I go to my backend, and I actually haven't tried this yet, this is not tested at all, but here we go. Like, actually, the record did get created. So we have like the size, medium, and the supreme, etc., etc. There's some other things that I want to show you just very quickly. So let's say if somebody provides you like the size up front, not necessarily when we asked for it, or maybe for the pizza type, we have over here something called reactions. So reactions, we can have an acknowledgement, and I could say, oh, I understand. Okay, I see that you like, and we could say pizza. You are in luck. We can prepare it for you. Okay. So this is basically like how we can acknowledge that we understand what the user wanted. But you can also in here have other types of acknowledgements. So for example, suggestions is basically if somebody chooses over and over again the same type of pizzas or the same kind of options. Another one, you can also have how you deal with ambiguities if somebody provides more than one pizza, and then you can also have validations. So you can maybe you don't allow this specific pizza in large size. So you could have like a validation to make sure that the user doesn't make a wrong order. But if we just do a quick acknowledgement, and then maybe for the sizes, I will do a reaction for what was it? Suggestions. Would you like it? And I can say size, and I will show you in a sec how this works. So this is basically for the chatbot to remember what the user put in the option. So usually it takes like 3 iterations for the chatbot to learn. So okay, I can say I want. Okay, I hungry, because I don't have to say exactly pepperoni. And nope, it didn't work. It's too low confidence for this specific conversation. Okay, so I want a pizza pepperoni. All right, let's try that. And you can see, say, hey, I see that you like pepperoni, you're in lag, we can prepare it for you. So you can see the chatbot already recognized it. And now if I choose large, actually no, I want to choose medium, because here's an interesting thing. You can see small is the last option. So let me confirm that. And now I can say, so the order went through, and I could say I want a pizza veggie. Or I could actually, and you see like this time, small is the first option. So the chatbot already remembered the last option, but is not 100% sure that this is all what you always want. So if I choose this time small and kind of confirm, now if I want to say I want a veggie pizza, we again get a nice acknowledgement, but this time the chatbot will ask, would you like it small? And in this case, you could say either yes or no. And if I say yes, we can just carry on, confirm, and everybody's happy. And our business is doing very well, because here you go, like we have a whole bunch of orders that came through. That's pretty much it what I wanted to show demo-wise. There's also like a tutorial that you can look, but I have like a couple of other slides, and maybe I can jump into the questions. But I think that this whole thing is pretty cool. And yeah, it deserves a little boop from a dog. But the whole idea is that like you can really build those chatbots like really quickly, really easily, and even publishing this, it would probably just take me a couple of minutes to show it in a live website, or inside a mobile application, or inside Viber, or even Facebook Messenger, which is pretty cool. So if you like this, you could check out more info on the website for Kinvey Chat. Obviously, where I was building the chatbot, you can find it at bots.kinvey.com. Our documentation, which is in process of migrating to a new domain, but you can for now find it at docs.nativechat.com. And I created a tutorial which has like 8 chapters on how to build like a lot larger chatbot, which includes conditional statements and validation, and building like more pretty UIs. So go ahead and check it out. So basically, like the official tutorial will probably get published next week. But if you really want to check it out now, I would recommend going to that link. And then you can also follow us on Twitter at Kinvey Chat. So yeah, and the important message is that no electric sheep were hurt in the making of this presentation. So I think that's really, really important.
Thanks for watching.